When you look out at the ocean, what do you see? Waves, right? Maybe you think about the big stuff, like whales or sharks. But the truth is, the real rulers of the sea, the ones that really run the show, are a hidden majority, totally invisible to the naked eye. So let's dive into this unseen world that, believe it or not, quietly governs our entire planet. So let me ask you something. What's responsible for about half the oxygen you're breathing right now? What forms the absolute foundation of the entire ocean food web and plays a huge role in keeping our climate in check? The answer? Well, it's probably not what you're thinking. It's plankton, an entire, invisible universe of viruses, bacteria, and tiny organisms, all packed into every single drop of seawater. For centuries, we knew it was there. We knew it was important, but the true scale of this microscopic world was just a massive blind spot for science. We had no idea. And that brings us to our first section, the ocean's invisible universe. We're going to look at why we knew so little about this engine of our planet. See, plankton are the dominant life forms in the ocean, but they're so tiny and spread out that studying them on a global scale was, for a long time, practically impossible. And this really gets to the heart of the problem. How can you even begin to predict how our oceans are going to respond to climate change if you don't even have a basic inventory of what lives in them? It's like trying to understand an engine without knowing what all the parts are. First, you have to know who the players are. So that brings us to Section 2, a voyage of discovery. To tackle this massive problem, a team of scientists embarked on what you can only describe as an epic quest. It was a modern-day scientific odyssey on a 36-meter schooner named Tara, and it really echoed those great expeditions of the past. For 3.5 years, from 2009 to 2013, the Tara just sailed and sailed and sailed. This was no pleasure cruise. It was a systematic, planet-wide mission to sample the invisible heart of the ocean. And the numbers behind this expedition are just staggering. They sailed 140,000 kilometers. That's more than 3 times around the Earth. They collected over 35,000 samples from 210 different locations. They had to deal with brutal storms and, yes, even evade pirates, all for the sake of science. Nothing like this had ever been attempted before. And they didn't just skim the surface. The team sampled 2 really critical layers. First, the sunlit epipelagic zone. That's where all the photosynthesis happens. And second, the dark mesopelagic or twilight zone, all the way down to 1,000 meters. This gave them a true 3-dimensional picture of life in the ocean. So after this unbelievable journey, what did they actually find? Well, that takes us to our next section, a flood of new life. Because the data that started coming back wasn't just an update to what we knew, it was a complete revolution in our understanding of life on this planet. Okay, get ready for this. Let's start with viruses. Before the Tara expedition, science knew of just 39 ocean virus genomes. 39. After Tara, that number exploded to nearly 200,000 new viral populations. They didn't just add a chapter to the textbook. They revealed a whole new library we didn't even know existed. And it wasn't just viruses. Think about the ocean's genetic library. All previous work had cataloged about 6 million microbial protein sequences. The Tara expedition came back with 40 million new ones. They basically achieved what's called near saturation, which means they captured almost the entire genetic playbook of the sunlit ocean's microbiome. But maybe the most shocking discovery of all came from the protists. These are a super diverse group of single-celled organisms called eukaryotes. The analysis revealed that about 90% of the diversity in this group was completely unknown to science. We're talking about countless new species of parasites and symbionts and predators, the very fabric of the ocean food web. And this brings us to a really crucial point, which is our next section, connecting a living ocean. Because the real power of the Tara project wasn't just about finding new stuff. It was about understanding how all these new players fit together to function as one massive, interconnected global ecosystem. The researchers use this fantastic analogy to explain their approach. Russian dolls. They started with the smallest doll, the biomolecules, the genes. They used that to understand the next doll up, the organisms themselves. Then they mapped how those organisms interact to form communities. And finally, how those communities connect to the largest doll of all, the entire Earth system and its global cycles. And what they found challenged the old, simple view of the ocean, as just big things eating little things. Instead, they discovered that the ecosystem is dominated by all these complex positive interactions, like symbiosis and parasitism, way more than anyone ever thought. This integrated view led to some mind-blowing insights. For example, for decades, the thinking was that viruses mostly keep carbon in the upper ocean by breaking down cells. But the Tara data showed that the abundance of viruses was the single best predictor of how much carbon gets sent to the deep sea, a critical part of regulating our climate. It was a complete 180 on what we thought we knew. So why does all this matter? What's the big takeaway? Well, that brings us to our final section, decoding our planet's future. Because this incredible scientific treasure trove isn't just for curiosity. It's a vital tool for understanding our changing world. Think about this. The TaraOcean's expedition created a comprehensive global baseline. It's a snapshot of the ocean's plankton communities right before the most severe impacts of climate change really start to kick in. It is our before picture for this new era we're in. And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? This invisible world underpins so much of life on Earth. As our planet continues to warm and our oceans continue to change, how is this hidden majority going to respond? And what's that going to mean for all of us? The answers are still being written, but thanks to the TaraOcean's expedition, we now finally have the language to begin reading the story.